Well, hello and welcome. I can't believe I'm saying this, to episode 7 of the Unstuck Club. The weeks are just, well, we don't even do it every week. We do it every 2 weeks. They are just flying past. But Jodine and I are particularly excited today because we have our first guest, official guest on the podcast. That's also been an interesting journey with Mercury retrograde and tech issues. For the first time we tried to do it, but here we are today. And we are going to be chatting to Jill about how she got unstuck from corporate life. And just a little bit of background before I ask Jill to introduce herself. I've known Gillian since you were in your early teens, I think, when I met you. Knew her mother, still know her mother. Her mother's a long-standing friend of ours. And I've really watched Jill, because there's one thing about getting unstuck is you have to do the work. You know, we can have all these great plans and dreams, but you have to get down and dirty. And I've watched Jill go through so many side hustles in her life. She's read all the books. I mean, if you ever went to Jill's flat, and I know it's still like that, there's affirmations on Post-it notes and positive statements. Like, she really works hard at it. As you're going to hear, it's not always the easiest journey. And we've got a couple of questions to ask her. But first, Jill, just tell us a little bit about you and your current business. And then, I will start asking you some questions.
Can I start by saying, like, women in diets? I've tried them all. Businesses. I've tried it all. I've tried networking. I've tried. So hi, how you guys? Thanks for having me on. So my business at the moment, I've got 2 businesses running. The one, my stepmom always said, stick with your knitting. So what I did was, when I walked out of corporate, I carried on in finance. So I do asset finance to anything from small businesses to big blue chips. What I did find, though, is that initially what had happened was I actually had too much time on my hands. And it was causing major anxiety. And what I then did was, my dad said, well, you can sew, go sew. So then I started a little business called Hint of Africa, where I sort of told my friends about it, and they were like, can you make a pencil bag? And I went, sure. So I made a pencil bag. And then it was, can you make a laptop bag? Dai's actually got one of my laptop bags. But that's really how it started. And I'm actually running 2 businesses now, which Hint of Africa is almost running on its own. And the finance side's been really interesting, because last year was sort of all over the place. It was up and down, and it was also a major learning year for me too. So I'm running 2 businesses.
Okay.
Without even actually really thinking it would happen, but it did.
So I know that there are people listening to this podcast who have a long-held dream of walking away from a 9-to-5 job. You decided to do that literally 2 years after we come out of COVID.
Yeah.
At a time when, like, the economy worldwide was in serious trouble, still is. So I want to know, what was the defining moment that got you to go, I'm done, I can't live this way any longer? What was that thing that pushed you to go, I have to get out of this?
Not ideal, but I'd hit a wall. I'd literally hit a wall. I resigned in June 2022. Throughout the beginning of the year, I had major problems with my son. It was an emotional drama, which I'm not going to get into, and I had he's fantastic, micromanaging boss. He's very, very good. He's so enthusiastic. And he would push me really, really hard. And every now and again, he'd push me to tears. And I'd do the, and he'd go, oh, are you crying? Okay, well, let's get off this call and I'll phone you back. This was, And one of those days, everything it just smashed all together, and I resigned. I was an emotional roller coaster, and I resigned. And it was so funny because I wrote out my resignation. I then I always do this because I can be quite harsh. And I sort of went, okay, go for a walk. I went for an hour's walk. I came back and I hit the send button. And he phoned me and went, I didn't expect this. So I was like, I didn't either. And that's where my journey started. But I think my journey started a long time before that, because I've always said I want to have my own business. I absolutely believe in my bones. I can do this. And that's why I tried everything from networking to Avon to side hustles to, gosh, all sorts of interesting things. And I'd never had the guts to do it. And this was just, I don't know, the universe conspired at that perfect moment to just hit me out the park. Yeah. And I literally, I honestly, if today I say to you, yes, I should have done it, and I'm really, really glad I did it. But at that moment, it was, I was like, I didn't really care, actually. I was out. I was done. I could do this. I was like, I'm finally jumping into the abyss. That was really what it was for me.
And I think the big thing is that what we haven't said is that you are a single mom.
Yeah.
So it's not like you had the backup of a second salary when you made this decision. And it is interesting that so often it's that point, like for you, and I remember you saying to me that like there was, eventually like one night you realized you were literally getting Eric home, feeding him and plonking him down in front of the TV so you could get back to your laptop. Because I mean, I know your job then was like you were, if your phone went, you had to respond. It didn't matter what time it was.
Yeah.
So it took Eric really struggling for you to go, well, hang on, this isn't working. And I think that's really, it is that inner, something just goes within you. And, we can know it all in our heads. Like, I want to do this and I want my own business. But that moment when you you become, Joe, the logo is the chain breaking. That chain just snaps and you go, I really can't do this. And I think a lot of people are at that point now. So I don't think, Jill, that you realize how much courage how much bravery you have had over the last 2 years, that you are you haven't gone back. And I know that there was at least one time when you had a very attractive offer. And I love that. Madam Universe tests us. When we go, this is what I'm going to do, Madam Universe goes, okay, let's see how serious you are. About this.
No, absolutely. I mean, so this incident with Eric, so what had happened was early in the year, he had come home and I had to sign all his books, and he came home with his life skills books, and it said in there, it's like my name and this is my age and all that, and tell me about your family. And he said, my mommy loves chocolate, so we can't keep chocolate in the house. And my mommy works all day. She just works, she never stops. I wish she would change her job. And I was like, oh God, okay. This is a little nunu. It's not even like an adult sort of going, okay, you're working too hard. And if I tell you now, I can say to you that I realized at that stage I was really, I don't want to say aggressive, but I was in autopilot. And I was, people would push me about, oh, you're working too hard. Well, get off my case, because, what else do I do? Because this is me. I've got to put a roof over his head. I've got to put him through school. I've still got to come home, be a mom, all those kind of things. Thankfully, my mom lives with us, so she's been a great help. But she also used to get bitten because she'd make comments and I'd just react. And I literally jumped out of it, and I did. I have those. I always joke and I go brave, stupid.
I even have it tattooed on me. It says one part brave, 2 parts. 1 part brave, 3 parts fool. Jill, what I want to say, the reason why this is so important for me, for you being a guest, is because a lot of people say to me, but it's easy for you to get unstuck because you don't have kids, because you don't have, it's just you only have to worry about you. So a lot of times when I tell people I did this to get unstuck and I took this leap and I did this, that's the thing, is that you have done this, single mom, like young kid, not someone who can fend for themselves along the way. And that's why it's so encouraging, I think, for so many people. And we're not saying it's not absolutely petrifying, right? But we are all entitled and worthy to unstuck ourselves, right?
Yeah. I think also, and I mean, you got to be really brave. And again, I joke, brave, stupid, because I swear there are those days where I'm like, oh, it was so much easier having a salary. I didn't have to think, there are days I don't feel like working, and I'm like, whereas now I go, well, if I'm not working, nothing's going to happen. So it's motivated me in a lot of ways, but it's also, I'm working harder now than I was before. And don't get me wrong, it's not been easy. I mean, I've had days, the one day, and I just ended up in a pile because I had $2.35 in my bank account. I needed to go and fetch my child from school. I needed to, and again, being a single mom, I needed to do this, I needed to do that, and there's no one that I can phone and say, oh, can you just give me $100? Or can you, my dad's retired, my mom's retired. So it's I think eventually you've just got to trust, hey? You've just got to trust that it's whatever's meant to be will be. And one thing I've come to realize is that trust your gut. Because, and even now, I mean, now I'm almost 2 years in, and I've put my CV out where I sort of go, okay, I'm done. This is way too much hard work. I want to sleep late on a Sunday, but I'm getting up to work. And I put my CV out and things will come back and I'm like, oh, okay, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So once again, and like Di says, the universe is always testing you. Is this what you want or not? And every time it comes back to, I'm on the right path. It feels right. It feels right. Yes, we celebrate all the wonderful, we celebrate the victories. But we also, you got to work through the tough times because there's lots of school fees. Because working for someone versus working for yourself is two completely different things. I've had to learn, and being in finance also, I've had to learn a whole different headspace on running a business versus just getting a salary. Because the salary comes in, you pay your bills, you spend it, whatever, you carry on, it comes in again. Now you're having to think forward and plan and, be prepared for the what ifs, which I've just sort of said, those big what ifs we'll deal with when they come. I've stopped worrying about, all the other million little tiny ones, because there are days there's very little I can do about it. So whatever.
Yeah. So I think that's, you've just hit on, and you've used the word a couple of times, is trust. And I think it really is also one of the ways to get unstuck, if you're going to take this path, is that you don't focus on the what ifs and, the things that are coming ahead. It's like, in this moment, I either have or I don't have enough, but I'm trusting, that feeling it is also so important. And I agree with you. As long as I've known you, you have this, like, I want my own business. And you've learned so much. This is the other thing I think we forget, is every time you try something and it doesn't work out the way you planned, you learn from it. Yeah. So the wealth of experience you've gained over the last 25 years is invaluable. Yeah. So I want to ask you, because I know it's the same. Whenever somebody starts telling people, oh, I'm going to do this business, or I've got this idea, you're going to get 20 people who will tell you why it won't work and all the things that can go wrong. How do you manage that kind of negativity. And I understand that they do it from a place of love. Most of them, they do it out of love and concern. But it can be very soul destroying. And I know, when Jodine decided to do the nomad and gave up her flat and then her car and her possessions, and people thought she was absolutely bonkers. What about your old age? And what about this? And you've got no security, and nothing is secure in the world at the moment anyway. Things are changing like that. But how do you have any tools that keep you on track when you're in that puddle, or when yet another person says to you, this is not going to work, and don't you think it's time you got a real job?
Yeah. So I think I've got down to being really stubborn, because I made a choice. Like I've also, like I say, I keep going back to, should I go and get a real job? A real job. I've got a real job. I'm doing my real job. And what is a real job? When people have come and sort of gone, you'd be so much more comfortable, you need to go back to corporate, do what the other people do, is I try to ignore it, but it does always sit. I mean, it sits. You do question. You really, really do. My mom is very, she's an accountant. Okay. I don't know how to explain her, but she's an accountant. She's worked her whole life. She's still working. Her go-to is get up, get dressed, go to work. And that's how she lives with life. And she would do. And eventually I sort of said to her, Mom, you got to trust me. I will never, ever put us in a situation where we are living in my car. First off, my car is a bit small. But then also is that I've got a kid. I can't just, what happens to my child if I can't put a roof over his head? So I've got all those driving factors behind me that add that stress and add that shock reality that if I fail, my son might end up going to live with his dad, which I wouldn't want because he's really far away. Would we end up sleeping in a car? Probably not, but, the chance is always there. So there's that stark reality that's always there that actually it almost helps drive your sort of resolve to keep it moving forward.
Okay.
So if I joke and I say I've become really stubborn about it, is I'm like, yes, I know. And I know they're coming from a good place. And I know that they are worried about me and where I'm at. But then I keep going. I also don't talk too much about what I'm doing and where I'm going. As I say, with my mom living with us, she knows exactly what's going on, because it's my way of allowing her just to breathe, because otherwise she'd just stress her head off. So I don't talk about what's happening in my life. I'm running a business. What's happening? Well, it's a bit quiet, but it's going.
Okay.
So we in our house we celebrate the victories. Yay, I got a new deal. Yay, I did a sale.
Okay.
So even if it's just a slab of chocolate kind of, we do. So it is difficult, and you really got to keep your head about yourself. But also, and I know I'm sort of sounding a bit negative, and I sort of have this rule about trying not to be negative, is that I'm still going, guys. I'm here. I'm still going. I'm still going. I'm still paying the bond. I'm still paying bills. I'm still putting my kid through school. He's still, loves his KFC and so on. So there's always balance. I don't know how to explain it. There's always balance,
Jill, there is the other side of it, of that I have a very strong belief that there's got to be someone, I say my person. There's just got to be someone who knows the lowest point, so that you don't feel alone in the world. Do you have that person? Is there someone, can you get into that vulnerability and have that person? I know it's quite an intimate question, but it is something that's so important about getting unstuck, is that knowing that you don't have to get unstuck alone.
Yeah, I think so. One of the problems that I've found, and it's been quite recent, is that with keeping to myself and not sort of talking about the because I've had people going, maybe you should go back to corporate. is I've kept a lot of the stuff to myself. So when I've sort of hit bottom, like I say, when I end up in a pile, that's the way I like to put it, because I'm very visual, is then I start listening to what's his name? Eric Thomas. He's one of these hardcore American football kind of, enthusiasts. I've also got what's her name? Robbins.
Mel
Robbins, yeah.
Is that I've done that. But then also Di's been a great source of inspiration for me, really, really, because it is. I was joking with her the other day. She does Reiki for me. And the one day I just said to her, oh, geez, I wish I could get top marks at Reiki. And she's like, well, what are you doing to get there? And I was like, nothing. But it is. And it is, because it's like everything's blocked. And I'm constantly doing reality checks with myself, because I have to. I mean, once again, is that there's nobody else to cover the bond and cover expenses and all that kind of thing. I've got to keep doing these reality checks. And like I joked with her about getting full marks on Reiki just once. But and then it's sort of like, and she said, what are you doing about it? How are you getting out of that hole? And then I've sort of gone, okay, yes, I need to sit down. I need to meditate. I need to ground. I need to get out, because what I tend to do is I tend to go within. And I work from home, and a lot of my meetings are on Teams. But now I've sort of changed that headspace to say, let me come and see you. Let me come and meet you. Let's go to a coffee shop. Because you start to almost get, I don't want to, as I say, again, I like the positive, but almost depressed, because you start to get lonely, because corporate, when you're feeling a bit down, you go and find a cup of coffee or stand in the kitchen with everybody else and catch up on the gossip. Here on your own, you're not doing that. So it is, I've needed to create regimes where I have to exercise. So I get up in the morning, I drop my child at school, I go for a half an hour walk. I've got my watch, and I'll go move, and I'm like, move, I'm busy, but I'll get up, I'll run up and down the stairs, and then I carry on walking, which sounds stupid, but all it's doing is it's getting your blood pumping. And then when I'm in my car on my way to clients, I listen to motivational videos all the time, because it is. And like I said, this Eric Thomas, he's a bit harsh, but it's get off your ass, get up, do it. And I mean, one of the nice ones, which I've been trying to find, is it starts with, you're still here. You woke up this morning. And I'm like, yeah, I did. And Mel Robbins, one of Mel Robbins as well, is she's like, when you're in the bathroom, high five yourself, because damn it, girl, you're doing it. You're still doing it. You're still here. So there's a lot of self-work that needs to be done almost all the time. It's not like, corporate, you're able to, at 5 o'clock you leave, you go home. Okay, with me, I was working all the time, which then also takes on a whole negative space of itself. But I'd come home, I'd get back on my laptop, I'd carry on working till 8, 9, 10 at night. That's why my son made a comment about it. But you've got to create regimes for yourself. You've got to say, get up, move, go and see people, walk around, go and knock on the neighbor's door. Just to keep that positivity, because you're not an island, hey?
Yeah.
What they say, there's no I in we. You're really not an island.
I think that's really important. There are a lot of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people who have their own businesses, and you can get very isolated and very stuck very quickly if you don't keep those connections. And I think the thing is, it can take effort. And I saw that today. I went to a small meeting. We've started a little group. Simon Sinek talks about, when you're in the mud, you don't need someone to pull you out. You need a mud buddy. So we've basically started a little mud buddy group. And we had a little event today. And just connecting with my tribe face to face, not on phones, on WhatsApps or voice notes, actually connecting, it shifts your energy completely. So I think that's very important. I think when you're coming unstuck from anything, because you need that support, It's big steps. It's out of your comfort zone. You know, anyone who walks away from a job that is, at the end of this month, you're getting a certain amount of money. That takes a huge amount of courage. Throw in having to be responsible for another person, a little soul, is added stress. So it's a very, very brave thing to go, I'm walking away from this job. There must be more. I think that's underlying. There has to be more than just this, getting up in the morning, going to a job that just absolutely sucks the life and the soul out of.
And I also think something that's so important. I know we're talking about the job, and it's so important, but I know that there are people who are listening who are stuck in relationships and who think that they can't get out of the relationship that they're in. And this applies, like for me, this applies to any kind of stuckness. I mean, Jill, at the end of the day, you got to a point where you realized that you're worth more, right? The way that you were currently feeling just was not aligned to how you wanted to feel, which is so important, because I'm listening and I'm getting to know you in the process, and a part of me is also going, there's, you must have chosen to do quite a bit to be a single mom and do this, and gotten unstuck in more places maybe than we've even touched on, which I really want people to remember. We can get unstuck from anything if we have the right people and the support and the belief in ourselves.
I think one of the things as well, which this year, so what's been interesting for me at the beginning of this year, so a lot of I'm a people pleaser by nature. That's just me. And what I tend to do is I tend to overextend myself to try and help the world. Okay. And I've realized this year is that by trying to save everybody else, you're doing yourself an injustice. And what I did at the beginning of this year is I sat down and I worked out what is not serving me. That was a tough one. Oh, my word. So, and I actually literally, there was a few things that I sort of, and I did it with love and with respect, but I just sort of went, what's not serving me? Now, and like also starting your own business, you need to actually sit down and see where you're going, set goals and all that kind of thing, because you need to see the end zone to be able to, establish put all the blocks in place. And there was a whole lot of stuff I was doing that was serving everybody else, but not myself. And I mean, like you say, in a relationship as well, it's exactly that, is you try and make everybody else happy and making yourself sick. And I've got a funny little quote. I've had it for years, and it was, on an airline, they say, always put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help everybody else. Because when you're unconscious, who's going to save everybody else? So it's almost like you're stepping up, but you've still got to protect yourself, and you've still got to help yourself first before you can help everybody else, and exactly that in relationships as well. I mean, I can tell you stories, but it has been, and this, I must say, doing this in a business as opposed to in a relationship, I almost want to say it's easier, if I could say that, because you're almost more analytical about it. You're passionate about your job, but there's no one talking back, and if you don't like what they're saying, you can just cut them off. Whereas in a relationship, it's very, very different. It's you've got someone else to consider, and there's always that to and fro. So I've learned so much about myself doing this.
So if you look back on the last 2 years, the person you were then and the person that you are now, what do you think has been your biggest lesson or change in yourself over the last 2 years on this journey?
There's quite a few things have changed. I could keep you going for hours, but I would say to you that I think the biggest thing for me is being confident and trust in self. It's really, when you're out on a wing, is that no one, and it again, and maybe this has been my journey, and I hope this will sort of, other people will be able to sort of relate to it. But one of the things I realized is that I've always sort of doubted self. I think that's why I didn't start this earlier. You're almost scared of the what ifs again. What if I fail? What if I'm a failure? What if my family, like, sort of, oh, shame, poor Jill, she couldn't cut it kind of story. And having a catalyst actually throw me into the universe was really phenomenal, because I've had to trust myself. I've put my feet down on the ground and I've said, this is it. This is what I have to do. And for me to be able to do this, I need to know that I trust that I can, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Because it really is. It's really easy to sort of jump on, and I'll relate to corporate, is that it's probably the easiest, is that to jump on someone else's sort of their coattails. It's really easy just to be pulled along. Here, I'm not. I'm having to create that reality. I'm having to grow the business and, do all of this. It's quite phenomenal, I must say. If I saying it to myself, I'm like, gee whiskers, yeah, actually. And sitting here right now, and this is the first time I'm sort of saying, with realizing I'm actually super proud of where I am, because, geez, like, I've gone to hell and back. Hey, you think, oh no, I'm just going to start a business, it's going to easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. But here I am. I'm still going, and I think that's what's helped me is my checkpoints. I'm still going. Yes, last month was a cuck month, but I'm still going. And I'm almost 2 years down the line, and I'm still going.
It's so beautiful. I mean, I'd love to have introduced you as the owner of a, 7-figure business, but you'll get, I've no doubt that you'll get there.
Well, I joke. So Warren Buffett made his first billion he made his first billion in his 50s. Okay. I am a millionaire. I own a house which is bonded by the bank, but it's worth $1 million. So, and that's how I sort of, I do these little things with myself where it is, I am doing well. I own $1 million rand house. Okay. I mean, as I say, the bank owns most of it, but I think
for now, the bank owns most of it for now.
Hey, exactly.
The bank owns most of it for now, not forever.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, I think one of the other things, and as I'm talking here, I've realized is I don't control much. Every now and again, I control as much as I can. Every now and again, you just got to let it go. And you actually hinder yourself by holding on too tight. And one of the podcasts I was listening to, he said, what was it? Stop trying to work out the how.
Yep.
It's just, where do you want to be? Okay, well, I want a 10 million rand a year business. I want it to be escalating per annum by at least 20%. That's where I want to be. Okay, how do you get there? Keep working. Keep being innovative. Keep looking around. Stop. And what I was doing, especially last year, is I was sort of going, I have to do this to get to that. And that was major school fees. Right. You just got to let it go. You just got to trust that you're on the right path and you're walking that way. And if it feels wrong, sort of down and work it out. If it feels right, move forward.
Yeah.
So no.
Ask yourself what can I control? Like, you actually got to ask, what is the only thing I can control? And that's what you got to, in your worst moment, that's what you got to do. Like, ask even if it's just sorting through the emails on that day and there's nothing else you can do, or make one phone call that might spark something. That's such an important thing to say.
I think, and I mean, one of the things I've come to actually rely on as well is I literally say to myself, because I'm a control freak, I say, I surrender.
Yes. Yes,
I
yes,
surrender.
yes.
I surrender. I can't. I'm at the end. I don't know what to do. I surrender. And what it does is it almost sort of, your body stops, your brain sort of goes, okay, let's reevaluate where we are and then move forward.
Brilliant.
You know, because it really is.
Yeah.
If I can only just do this, and everything's falling apart. And I sort of almost, and although I'm in finance, I'm in the sales side of finance. I go out there helping other business to finance assets, etc., it's only if everything's in a perfect sort of, what do you call it? You know, when the time's right, things happen the right way. And, you know, I can go out and I can see 300 million businesses, and I can speak to, and they're all giving me all the right signals. But when they're ready, they will go. And I mean, recently in the last 2-3 weeks, as I've sort of gone through that.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is that yesterday I had a client I spoke to when I first started this. He phoned me up and go, "Hi, I'm ready." Yay. But it's that kind of, yeah, sometimes you just got to let the wave take you. Hey, you try and control the wave, you're gonna get dunked.
I think that's a really beautiful way to end this off. That message that the how is not up to us. And I heard that years ago. We were at some conference and they'd organized a motivational speaker for the wives. Funnily enough, his first name was also Eric. And he said, you focus on the end result, and the how takes care of itself. And I've never forgotten that. So that and the surrender, I think, is to end off today's podcast, is don't get the how is what trips you up, because that's the limiting belief system.
Exactly. I just want to add, because it's very important to me, that focus, that end result, also don't make it so specific, because all of that's coming from the ego. All of that's coming from, no matter what you say, when you are setting goals and intentions for yourself, it is coming from that ego mind of, I must have this, I won't survive without this. So, and it's changed a lot over time. I think we've kind of like gotten a little bit too stuck on, I must tell the universe exactly what I need, just so that that end result is loose. You know, the end result is the happiness, the success, Jill, that feeling that you just want to, that feeling of success, that feeling of, that's also for me just such an important message to end on.
I think so. That quote is, what is your why? What is your why?
That's Simon
something
Sinek
like that. Work out your why, and the how will take care of itself, or something like. I'll actually get the quote for you, but it's exactly that. So setting those intentions.
Gillian Whitehead of Hint of Africa, thank you for being our first guest and sharing how you. That's a big unstuck.
Yeah,
that was a very brave unstuck. And we look
every now and again I question, I'm not going to lie.
We look forward to seeing where your journey takes you. If anybody is interested, you do have a Facebook page, Hint of Africa.
Thank you.
And we wish you well on this very exciting journey.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Such
and
a pleasure.
I hope anybody, even if it's just the tiniest bit, but help anybody get unstuck.
Yeah. I'm sure it will. And on that note, we will see you next time. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.